Hi, are you around 60 years of age or older? It doesn't matter whether you're retired or not. What I'm going to say to you now, I think, as a retiree of 28 years, that what I'm going to say here is very important. So what is this very important thing? It's your health. Your health. Unless you're reasonably fit and well and have your faculties about you, you're not going to enjoy retirement much. So how can you ensure that you do remain fit and well as long as possible? Now, you'd have watched all the videos about what to eat and exercise and so forth, but I'd like to take it from a different aspect, a slightly different aspect. Do you remember the first time that you ever saw yourself in a video taken by somebody else? Perhaps where you were actually seen at some distance, and perhaps you saw yourself for the first time from the back or the side, and you'd never really noticed that before, because most of us, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we only see the head and shoulders part of ourselves or the full body length of ourselves from the front. When I was around about in my early 60s, I belonged to an organisation known as U3A, the University of the Third Age. And I was at one of their conferences and I had to give a presentation. And somebody took some photographs and they were taken from profile, from me, from the side. And it was at that stage that I suddenly realised that I had an older man's stance. What does that mean? It means that my head was forward, far forward than a young man's head would be. Perhaps my shoulders were slumped just a little bit. But anyway, I was quite surprised because I'd always envisaged myself as being very athletic, very upright, upstanding as the word goes, and I wasn't. And this brings me to something which is very important as we get older, and that is not just our stance, but our sense of balance, which hinges a great deal upon our stance. I'm in Toastmasters International, an organisation on public speaking and leadership. And one of the members of our club is a postgraduate in psychology. And she's doing a thesis on stance. And in that thesis were shown a lot of pictures about people, how they stand and what's wrong with their stance. And we had to correct them. And of course, nearly all of them were stooped over in some manner. And this stooping over in some balance means that we tend to walk incorrectly. We lean forward. We don't stamp firmly on our heels when we walk. We tend to walk towards our toes. And this throws us off balance. And it's far more easy to have a fall. And we know how serious a fall is as we get older, if our stance and our balance isn't right. And this brought me home quite recently to watching a few videos on balance. And of course I hadn't realised that there are people out there who specialise in this sort of thing. Looking at older people, looking at their stance, correcting their stance, but also giving them hints on how to retain their balance as they get older. Because apparently it depends on a number of things which deteriorate in most of us as we grow older. Our eyesight isn't as good. Our balance, because of our hearing and ears, isn't so good. Our muscular presence of feeling where we are in space and our feet touching the ground isn't as good as it used to be But these key things can be recovered. Our sense of balance can be recovered. Now, one of the things which happens to most of us as we grow older is we let our spine become almost seized up. We don't bend enough. We don't bend. The man who can bend up, stand up, bend down and put his fingers on the ground has got a very fit backbone indeed. How many older people can do that? This is why yoga stretches are so good. Now, I've been into yoga, not seriously, but do my yoga stretches now, since my mid-30s, and consequently my stance is pretty good. But one thing that's very important, I had a back injury at some time. I think we all have back injuries at some time or another. And I saw a chiropractor. And this chiropractor, his name was Ed. He was an American-based chiropractic who'd done an MD in the USA and come to Australia. And Ed told me something which has always stayed in my mind. He said, Tom, you are as young as your spine is supple. You are as young as your spine is supple, which means the more flexible we are, the more we can turn this way, that way, bend over, twist around with ease, the younger we're going to be body-wise, because everything, all the nerve endings and so forth, come down through that backbone and come out from the spine to various parts of the body. Keep the spine fit. And one of the ways to keep it fit is to keep your body supple. And one of the ways to do that is to make sure you have good stance. Good stance will give you good balance. Good balance will make you feel better, look younger, be better. So, as I said, be very careful about your stance, your sense of balance. Do yoga stretches, do exercise, do all the right things. But remember the importance of balance in your life if you want to lead a long, happy, merry, healthy retirement.